So thank you so much for being here. This is your Daily Bhakti Center podcast, where we have your daily dose of spiritual connection and inspiration, and through each other's Sangha and the Bhagavad Gita. We have a live Zoom studio audience. I'm here. My name is Dal Grunga. I'm here with the Chuta Gopi. Kishore Chandra's not here with us today. And how we doing, Chuta?
Feeling super grateful.
Feeling super, super grateful. Beautiful. Well, I'm grateful that you're here also. Couple of announcements. I got an email to read. We got a beautiful email that I wanted to read, and I asked permission from this person if I could read it, and they said yes. We have,
Yay.
for those who don't know, we have if you want to write to us, Spirit Matters at bhakticenter.org. We love to hear from you, hear your stories, finding out where people ask me all the time, how many people listen to the podcast? And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't check. I don't know. Because we just do it and see what happens. But we know people are out there and they sometimes write to us. And there's one beautiful email that I wanted to read, just received. And it says, "Good morning, wonderful souls. Let me start by saying I also used to get soundtracks together for road trips. Not all of us are born after 2000s. Throwback to a previous episode earlier this week, maybe. While driving to work this morning, I was listening to the podcast and I knew I had to shoot an email to thank you for all this absolutely amazing gem, triple exclamation mark. I confess I found the podcast, I believe, around August, and I could not stop until I listened to all the episodes, all capital ALL of them. I'm all caught up now and looking forward to an episode in my mornings. I first read the Gita in 2016, and it changed my life. Honestly, it became my favorite book, even though at the time I didn't understand what was changing inside of me. Fast forward to finding Janavi's music and then the Bhakti Center. I don't know what took me so long, and I signed up for a beginning Bhakti group that will start tomorrow. This was Tuesday, which started yesterday. I honestly cannot believe there was such a beautiful spiritual community right here, and I was not aware. I did a YTT, yoga teacher training, in 2017, and of course, all of these scriptures entered my life. And even though I don't practice asanas as much because I had a rotator cuff and bicep tear and surgery later on, I always stayed on the path because something was calling me. I'm so glad it brought me here. On Johnny V's concert at the town hall, I was amazed when I saw a Dayal and a Chuta and told my husband, OMG, it's Dayal and his wife. And there's a Chuta also. He had no clue what I was talking about or why I was so excited. But I guess you guys became a bit part of my life along with Kishore. So this email, it's just to thank all of you for everything you do. I wish I lived closer so that I could attend Kirtan, but I'll make it to the city one day for it. I really want to. Keep spreading this wonderful message. It's very much appreciated. From our beautiful friend, Sophia. I still don't know where Sophia lives. I didn't ask her, but I imagine she lives somewhat near and around the city. Thank you, Sophia, so much for being here. And thank you, all of you. I read that not to toot our horn, but just to let you guys know the beautiful community that you're a part of and the people wherever you are. There are people like you driving to work, getting ready for dinner, winding down for the day, waking up in the morning, having breakfast, taking a walk in the park, like in the shower, like whatever it is you're doing. There are people on their path, people that are seeking spiritual connection, people that are reading sacred literature and studying the Gita and asking questions. And more than anything, of just you listening to us just spew out information each day, it's really an opportunity that we wanted to create for you to come together and feel connected. Nachi said Sophia's in New Jersey. She was in the same beginning Bhakti group yesterday with Brajarani. Connections. Which, I mean, New Jersey, you might as well live in Alaska. I mean, it's like, who knows how close that is. But beautiful, beautiful. I'm so glad you're in that group also. We have beginning Bhakti groups, although it just started yesterday. So go to bhakticenter.org and look for online and in-person community groups to stay connected. Write to us at spiritmatters.org at bhakticenter.org. And that's my announcement for this morning. I wanted to share that with all of us. So thank you, Chuta, for being you.
That was so beautiful.
It was sweet, right? Yeah,
So
sweet
nice.
stories.
Sometimes we should toot our own horns, though. Yeah. It was nice. We got to meet some listeners in India, which was really, really cool.
People, Indians living in India.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, I know you from the podcast.
It was really nice.
Oh, that's sweet. They're out there. They're out there. The Bhagavad Gita is a powerful message, connects to people transculturally, transcontinental. And we're in some beautiful section of verses we've been discussing in the end of the second chapter of the Gita. And one of the beautiful, Srila Prabhupada gave a title of the second chapter of the contents of the Gita summarized. It's the second longest chapter in the whole book out of 18 chapters. And really, if you dive in and you look closely, it's like everything is really there in the whole Gita in the second chapter. Everything from like you're not your body, you're an eternal spirit soul, to like giving everything to the supreme absolute person, and surrender and restraint from things that aren't good for you, and higher values. Like it's all there. And we're in this the last 10, less than 10 verses, 8, 5, 6, 7, 8 verses in the Gita. And Krishna's going to make some really, really beautiful points about uh meditation, but not the meditation that we think of, like sitting crossed legs with your eyes closed in trance on the top of a mountain, but like actually meditation is taking place all the time. And Krishna's going to say, be careful what you're meditating on, because what you're meditating on, you are going to move closer to. And you are meditating on something on a regular basis, especially in today's world that's constantly like your attention. I was listening to this. I got to go back and listen. I just saw a piece of it. Can I go on this rant, Achuta? Do I have permission? Thumbs up from Achuta. Somebody was posting Bo Burnham. You know Bo Burnham? He's a comedian. He was a comedian. But he was talking about how the digital space that we live in, and how, when social media companies, there's these memes of like, people in their 30s and 40s love to tell people how they had a Facebook account when it was only when you used to have a college email account. That's how it started. Facebook began as like a school club connector, and then it became public. And he said when social media accounts became corporate in the sense that they went public and people had shares, it became like it was no longer about connecting people and just about growth. Like they have to grow every year. And he was saying that like in throughout history, there was a need to um, colonize the globe. Like superpowers and countries were like, Columbus came to America, and the colonization of South America. Like there was a need, to colonize the Caribbean islands and Hawaii, and like all of these efforts to, New York was originally New Amsterdam, and so you have all of these needs to colonize the physical spaces, but now everything's like taken up. There's no more colonizing of physical spaces. So now we live in a digital universe. And like there's this need almost to like colonize the digital spaces, to own the digital space, and to grow and to expand and to own more digital capital. And we become, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok become the new landscape for people to grow and dominate in power. And we're just all getting caught up in all of that. And so, oh, this is the point I was going to make. I promise there was a point. Shoot this like, oh my God, Doyle, where are you going? Please reel this in. We're talking about colonization and landscapes and Hawaii. But there becomes our human attention has become the new commodity of the 21st century. And whether it's streaming platforms or social media companies or news agencies, it's like there is this huge dash to gain our attention, um, and to force us into a sort of meditation on whatever, on a certain news story, on a social media feed, on a celebrity, and this, or like, whatever it is. And so Krishna, thousands of years ago, is saying like, be careful what you meditate on, especially today, because there are consequences, and there is a sequence of meditation. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at, because we read, what's the last verse that we read? We read 59, right? We had 58 and 59, like the turtle. And then are we in 59 or are we in 60? Do you remember what verse we're on?
We're on 60.
We're on 60. Okay. Over to you, Chuta. If there's anything you want to say about what I just shared, or you want to just move on and read verse 60.
I think it actually flows really well into the verse.
Oh, good. I'm really glad. I was worried it was like nothing you said made sense. Can we just read the Gita now?
No, no, it has a really nice correlation.
Okay, good.
So 260.
Whew.
Krishna is still speaking to Arjuna. He says, the senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. And so it's exactly like you said. Not only are people striving for our attention, companies striving for our attention, businesses striving for our attention, celebrities striving for our attention, our own senses are also caught up in this
Wow.
fight for all of our attention,
Yeah.
which is kind of amazing because our attention, our intelligence goes deeper than even our own senses.
Yeah.
It's
I,
something
I,
so apart from all of that.
yeah. And I think it's powerful. I mean, it's such a powerful concept here in the basic foundational teachings of the Gita in the second chapter. The idea of like just, um, even this word Sankhya philosophy is used in the Gita earlier on, and which means to count. And it's a form of a Vedic thought system that allows people to step back and just see things clearly. Like, let's just take a step back and separate atom from atom and like understand what we're looking at. And it tells us that like you are a complex mixture of a bunch of different elements that, although mushed and mashed together, are ultimately separate. And you need to learn how to disentangle yourself and identify who you are from all the other things in your identity. So like your senses are individual entities that are separate from you. Your mind is separate from you. So it's like when we think about the idea of needs, I just need a popsicle. I say that usually each night. There's these new lime popsicles that we found on Atlanta, on Flatbush. When you come or drive home to the city, there's this little bodega that has these specific popsicles that I stop by sometimes when I'm on my way from the Bhakti Center. And we found these new lime flavors, and I bought a few boxes of them. And my wife's like, "We need to ration these things," knowing that like I'll eat 4 in an evening. And so I'll be like, I need a popsicle. But the reality is, a spiritualist starts thinking, no, I don't need a popsicle. My stomach feels like it needs a popsicle. My tongue feels like it needs a popsicle. My mind is telling me that it needs a popsicle. But I, the spiritual, I don't need that. And so I think just being able to like, to this verse, you're saying the senses are so strong and impetuous, Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination who's endeavoring to control them. That like my senses can trick me so heavily into thinking I need something. I have to have something. Um, but I don't really. My senses think they need that. My mind thinks it needs that. And it's saying that if we're not careful and we don't practice this in the previous verse, this idea of learning a type of healthy restraint, a learning to gain a higher taste of the higher things of life, then I'm really just going to get dragged around all over the universe, and I'm going to end up in this place and ask that age-old question of, how did I get here? How did this happen? What led me to this place? And the Gita is retracing our steps for us. It's like, I'll tell you what happened is that your senses carried you away. And Christian in the next verses, whether we get to them today or not, we want to carry on just this one thread. Christian in the next verses is going to talk about this process, about how careful we need to be that every and it works like that. And I don't mean to like get into the whole like bashing on social media and down that rabbit hole, but the reality is like it's very subtle and insidious, just like gambling. You know, it's like, how does somebody go to Las Vegas and lose all their fortune? It's not that they walk up and the first blackjack table they sit, it's like, put everything down on red. You know, it's like you start a little bit and it's like a little bit, and then you get drawn in, and then you get drawn in, and then all of a sudden it's like 2 hours later I'm watching about like how the news about like a missing grandmother in Indonesia was eaten alive by a massive python. True story. True story. Look it up. Just Google search grandmother python. She was lost and eaten alive in Indonesia. Hare Krishna, God bless her soul. But I'm just saying, it's like all of a sudden you're watching these random videos of whatever, and it's just it's slow and it starts off with. So we just have to be careful where we put our attention.
Thank you for those cautionary tales. We're not letting Dial gamble. We're also gonna start limiting his YouTube watching. And to that end, the it sometimes it all boils down to like some of the reasons that diets don't work.
Mm.
Because our focus is simply on the restraint.
Mm.
Your focus with a lime popsicle is simply on the restraint, right? Like we haven't started to ask the proper questions. We're asking the wrong questions. It's not like, oh, I need to restrain this because my tongue is saying I just need a popsicle. Well, why? What's the popsicle actually doing?
Because they're
Is it
so
giving
good.
exactly, but is it giving a comfort? It's not
Mm.
just that it's good. There's a comfort that I feel. There's a
Mm.
familiarity that it's bringing. I'm seeking something familiar, stable, comforting. It's not about the popsicle. Our
Mm.
senses have equated this popsicle with this feeling of stable, comfort, and familiar.
You're so much
So
deep and
now,
articulate than me. This is our formula, by the way, if you're new to the podcast. Dial just spews out a bunch of just like whatever, like a random stream of consciousness. And then Achuta kind of catches something and pulls it into something philosophical and meaningful. And that's how we work together. That's why we're here.
but it's the same thing. Our minds will tell us, you just need that drink. You just
Mm.
you just need to go. But why? We're scrolling
Yes.
because often we're looking for connection. We're scrolling
Mm.
because sometimes we are looking to disconnect. We're
Yeah.
scrolling because better that I tune into somebody else's life than tune into my own.
Mm.
We're scrolling because I have to get away from whatever else is happening. I need to create a new narrative, a new story that does not
Mm.
involve the stresses that are occurring around me. So the
Mm.
restraint and what we're careful about giving our attention to also taps into we have to start asking ourselves the right questions.
Mm.
And so more than just, okay, let me restrain myself from doing this. It's like, wait. Why was I doing that? And so this is what Arjuna is asking. Who am I? Why am I doing this? What he's like on a battlefield stopping and going, wait. Is anybody really asking like what is the deal with this war? Why am I doing
Mm.
this? I don't think that this is a great idea. And
Mm.
Krishna is saying, but the war might not be a good idea on its own. Yes, war bad. But the reason why are you doing this? You are doing this to stand up for the family around you, for future generations. You're doing this to set a precedent.
Mm.
If you don't do this, there will be another precedent set. But that
Mm.
precedent will be so much worse than you could ever imagine.
Mm.
This might be a ghastly thing that I'm asking you to do, but the reason behind it, the why, is what is so much more important.
Mm. And I love so much how you're talking about like I need a popsicle, which is a genuine need.
It is.
I just want to clarify that. But the real need, as you're saying, is it's comfort. It's I need familiarity. And I'm just reflecting back a few verses. I was looking here a few verses back. So we just read verse 60. A few verses back in verse 55, Krishna begins this section by saying, "Oh, Partha, Arjuna, when a man," and he's referring to it in a masculine sense, but when a man or a woman or a person or anyone gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, my tongue touches the popsicle, my eyes look at the screen, my ears listen to whatever, which arise from mental concoction. And that's kind of a word that we use, that we kind of like, mental concoction. Like, what the heck is mental concoction? Like, that's such a concoction. We use that word often. Stop concocting your story. But mental concoction, meaning that my mind creates a story. The real need is I need comfort, I need familiarity, etc. And now there's a story that, you know what? If I just touch that little juicy, sweet block of ice that's frozen around a stick, and I put it onto my tongue, I'm going to feel connection and familiarity and comfort. That is a mental concoction. And when you really think about it, pleasure in this world, the majority of pleasure, it's all mental. It's not physical. Pleasure is a mental concoction. However we think there's something mental about the idea of food, the idea of physical pleasures. Sex is a mental pleasure. And so it's we think that it's something physical. But actually it so much exists in the mind. That's why, you ever had this, you ruined it for me. Ever had that experience? Like, you ruined it for me. As a kid, I used to read the ingredients of the things my sister used to eat. She's like, "Stop it, you're ruining it for me." I'm like, how? It's the same thing. Like, why? It's because, well, now I know what's in it. I don't want to eat it. Well, it tastes the same. Like, why is it any different? You
And
know?
that's exactly what Krishna was saying a few verses before. If it's mental, then you can rewire it. If it is
Yeah.
a mental connection, if there is an emotional connection that you're looking for, you can rewire your association in your mind to something higher. We can now rewire our brains, instead of reaching for whatever it is, to reach for Krishna. We can rewire it because
Yeah.
it was largely here anyway.
Totally, totally, totally. And that's what Krishna mentions. And we're just peeling back in verse 55. When you give up the desire for sense gratification, which arises from mental concoction, and when the mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then they're said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So it's not that you have to give up the search for satisfaction. It's just rewriting that narrative and story. And then we've read all these verses that follow that, when how we develop this equanimity amidst the upheavals of life, and we learn the idea of healthy restraint, that when there's an urge and there's a push, that we need to be able to hold back. There has to be some ability to restrain and withhold ourselves to some extent. But then in the last verse we read yesterday, just restraint is not enough, because there's still the story in the mind. And
Because there
so
was a deep rooted desire. Like,
there was a
it
deep rooted
wasn't just
desire.
coming from mechanical activity, right? It wasn't a non thinking, unintellectual desire or need or something. It
Yeah.
wasn't like an involuntary breathing reflex. This is
Yes.
from a desire. And so we have to change what we associate with those desires.
And everything we do feeds a desire, which means that desire grows. So I have a desire for X, and then I indulge in X. That desire for X, or that conditioning, we use the conditioning to reach for X, grows. And it becomes harder to let go of X in the future. And so that's what Krishna's saying in this verse today, text 60. The senses are so strong and impetuous, meaning that they're relentless. They're going to yearn. They're going to like pull you over to that freezer. They forcibly carry Dayal away from the couch towards the kitchen and open the freezer. Even though he's trying to be a person of discrimination, endeavoring to control them. They easily carry away um the senses, the mind of someone, even though you're endeavoring, because the desire is there. And so it's like be careful with what you allow yourself to indulge in, because that's creating impressions on the mind. It's not, nothing is isolated. You're creating impressions. So whenever you think you're just scrolling, or you're just even talking, like there's this beautiful, like the idea of even like gossip is such an, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave two formulas, two things to excel in spiritual life: chant the holy names, chant divine mantra, chant Krishna's names, and never criticize anybody. And Burijan Prabhu gives this beautiful, one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, a teacher in our movement, mentions that whenever we criticize against others, the lotus flower of the heart contracts. And so this idea of even like loose lips and just talking, and like when I just kind of speak loosely of other people, and all of a sudden I'm speaking about somebody else, or I'm gossiping about somebody else, or I'm making fun of somebody else, or I'm criticizing loosely, it's like I'm developing a habit of just like letting my lips flow towards criticizing other people. And all of a sudden it's my heart is closing off, because it's like, be really careful about how you engage in conversation, how you talk to other people, the things you consume, your diet, not just your food diet, but your entire sensual diet.
Just the other day, I was talking to a friend about that, and we were, because my friend was talking about something that they thought was just like this. They were like, "This is ridiculous." I was like, "It is." And then they said, "But like, like, don't you find it a need to like talk about it?" And I was like, "No." And they said, "Well, why?" I said, "Because I started to ask myself, one, what difference does it make? Um, if I'm not in a position of like authority to change said thing, and if I'm just talking about it, like it wasn't even anything that, it was like something on social media that's been blowing up really big, and it's like, but that's not really Krishna conscious, is it?" And I was like, not really." And so then they're like, "What? But don't you ever feel the need to like just like talk about it?" And I was like, "No." But you ever notice how when you start, it's like you go into it more and more and more, and before you know it, you've said paragraphs and paragraphs and spent an hour and a half talking about the thing that you didn't even feel the need to talk about. Like, I started asking myself, why did I feel the need to start talking about it? And
Mm,
sometimes it's largely because of my own jealousy. Why does that deserve so much attention when I'm working so hard just being a genuine authentic person and I'm not getting any attention?
mm,
That is the real, that's the real thing. There's some
mm,
lacking that I'm feeling. There's some jealousy that I'm feeling. There's some inadequacy that I'm feeling. There's some, why should they get this and they do nothing and I do everything and I get nothing?
mm,
There's a story that my mind is telling me.
mm.
There's something deeper that I'm looking for, and it has nothing to do with whatever video that person made over there. And
Yeah.
so I was like, no, actually, I stopped feeling the need to talk about that when I started asking myself, okay, why? What is it? Because that's what I need to work on. My own feelings of inadequacy, my own
Mm,
feelings of jealousy, my own feelings of, why aren't I good enough? Wait a second, but I always was.
mm,
And the heart count on an Instagram reel is not going to make that any different.
mm. Snapping. I'm snapping. Um, Beautiful, beautiful. I felt a lot of energy today. That was beautiful, Chuta. Thank you for everything you shared. Kimberly is not available to give us our takeaways today because her and Pasha and Lane are on a plane, are about to get on a plane. Pasha and Lane from the Pacific Northwest, and Kimberly up in Northern California. They're gonna board planes and meet each other in Southern
Oh my God, yeah,
California.
because today's the day.
They're going to Johnny V's concert in at Los
Today is the
Angeles.
day. Dude, I
Yeah,
wish we could just fly out and go, man. Let's leave
we
right
should
now.
totally do it. We should do it right now. We can be there.
We can't do that
Um,
because Thursday night kirtan.
oh yeah, you guys are missing out. There's an Kirtan. Um, But so we wish you guys all the best, but we don't have Kimberly for takeaways. Ball Davy wrote a takeaway there that we want to read. You open your lips and allow an egoic energy such as smug and sneer, depending. And when you get away with it, you keep going, expanding that energy within until it is normal. Ugh. Yes.
Yeah, my goal these days has been to start trying to figure out why I let that energy in the first place.
Mm,
There is something deeper. When people say, "Oh, but I just, what if I just need the drink? What if I just need it?" And I'm like, "But you don't. You need something else. There is something that you're looking for that you feel as though you found within the drink, an escape, a connection.
mm,
There is
yes.
something we're all looking for." And
Yes.
so whether our addiction is
New York City.
whether our addiction is scrolling, whether our addiction is to speaking the things that come to our mind because we've just got to be real, whether our addiction is to unhealthy connections with people, whatever
Mm,
our addiction is, my own included, I'm trying to find the root desire behind them. And I've been trying to
mm,
rewire those root desires. Am I actually tasting the beauty of association with Krishna? Like Bhagavad Gita says, I absolutely can. Am I finding the familiarity in tasting the beauty of the association of Krishna? Am
mm,
I finding that comfort? Am I finding that connection with those devotees where we come together and we're sitting and we're
mm,
talking about Krishna and we're tasting the beauty of connection with Krishna? Am I finding that there? If
mm.
not, I need to figure out how to rewire my brain so
Yeah.
that that becomes my new addiction.
Mm. I love that. Pasha said she loves that. Ball Davy says she loves that, and I think that that's a great place for us to close out today. Um, I'm gonna close out with that as well. Like, is what I'm really looking for found here? Do I really think I'm gonna find it here? Beautiful question. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in, our live audience, wherever you're in out there in podcast land. Please be in touch with us, write to us. Um, be in touch with each other. We look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. Take care. Bye bye, everybody.
We should all send Dial some of those green popsicles for his birthday.
Oh man, yeah, stock up. I'll get a separate freezer just for that.
I think there's nothing wrong with a green popsicle.
Oh man, I can do it. I can do it. A year's supply there might be more than you think would be required for me. Love you guys. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.